Somewhere along the way, someone handed you a dream small enough to fit inside a cubicle. They gave you a number, a salary, a title, a rung on a ladder that someone else built, and they told you to be grateful. They told you this was the responsible thing, the safe thing, the smart thing. And because the world spoke in one voice, and because that voice was loud, and because you were young and uncertain and still learning the shape of your own hunger, you listened. But there has always been something in you that did not believe them. There has always been a fire that refused to be extinguished by routine, a restlessness that no paycheck could quiet, a vision, however blurry, of something larger, something that bore your name not on a name tag, but on the doors of something you built with your own hands, your own mind, your own burning, relentless will. That fire is not an accident. It is not arrogance. It is not delusion. That fire is a calling. And today, not tomorrow, not when the conditions are right, not when the world gives you permission, today you are going to stop apologizing for it. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years of his life studying the men who refused to be tamed by ordinary expectations. He sat with Andrew Carnegie, who arrived in America with nothing but an accent and an ambition that refused to be reasonable. He studied Thomas Edison, who failed 10,000 times before he gave the world light, not because he was lucky, but because he had decided at the level of his bones that failure was simply tuition. He examined the life of Henry Ford, who was told by experts that his idea was ridiculous, who was laughed out of rooms by men who are now forgotten, while Ford's name is still on cars rolling down highways across the world. What Hill found, after 20 decades, after hundreds of interviews, after sifting through the stories of men and women who built empires from nothing, was not a secret. It was not a formula locked behind wealth or education or privilege. It was a mindset. Not the soft, sanitized version of mindset that gets printed on coffee mugs, not the shallow affirmations people repeat without conviction, but a way of seeing, a fundamental orientation toward life that treats every obstacle as a classroom, every rejection as redirection, every closed door as proof that you need to build your own.
The empire you were meant to build does not begin with capital. It does not begin with connections. It does not begin with the right market conditions or a perfect business plan or a mentor who appears at exactly the right moment. It begins the moment you change what you believe about yourself. Understand this, and understand it deeply, because it is the foundation beneath everything else that follows. The outer world is always a reflection of the inner world. Not sometimes, not partially, always. The man who believes he is worth $10 an hour will unconsciously arrange his life to confirm that belief. He will undercharge. He will over-deliver without negotiation. He will shrink in rooms where he should expand. He will talk himself out of opportunities before the opportunity has a chance to reject him. He will do all of this not because he is weak, not because he is unintelligent, but because the architecture of his self-image demands it. Conversely, the woman who has decided, not hoped, not wished, but decided that she is capable of building something great, will begin to see the world differently. Doors that were always there will suddenly become visible to her. Conversations will open. Resources will appear. Not through magic, not through the mysterious workings of some cosmic force, but because her attention, sharpened by belief, has been aimed at possibility instead of limitation. This is what Hill called the mastermind of the subconscious, the part of you that is always working, always processing, always filtering the infinite data of the world through whatever lens you have given it. Give it a lens of scarcity, and it will find scarcity everywhere. Give it a lens of abundance, of capability, of deserving, and it will begin, slowly and then all at once, to find evidence for that instead. The question is never, can I build an empire? The question is, what do I truly believe about myself when no one is watching? Because that belief, raw, unperformed, sitting quietly in the dark corners of your private thoughts, that is the blueprint your life is being built from, right now, whether you are conscious of it or not. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Read that again. The man who built the most imaginative entertainment empire in human history was told by an editor that he had no creative vision. Disney did not accept that verdict. He could not, because somewhere inside him he had a picture, vivid, luminous, detailed, of something the world had never seen before. That picture was more real to him than the opinion of the man who fired him. And so he returned to it again and again, through bankruptcy and ridicule and years of struggle, until the picture in his mind became the parks and the characters and the stories that now live in the hearts of billions.
The picture came first. Everything else followed. What is the picture you are carrying? Not the one you show people. Not the careful, modest version you offer in conversation so as not to seem presumptuous. The real one. The one you return to in the quiet hours. The one that makes your pulse quicken and your chest expand with something that feels equal parts terror and electricity. That picture is not fantasy. It is not ego. It is your blueprint. Clarity is the currency of empire. Most people move through their lives in a kind of motivated fog. They want more money, more freedom, more meaning, but the wanting is diffuse, unfocused, like light spread across a room. Warm, perhaps, comfortable even, but incapable of cutting through anything. A laser and a lamp both use light. The difference is concentration. When Hill interviewed Carnegie about the origins of his wealth, Carnegie did not speak first about steel or strategy or market timing. He spoke about definiteness of purpose, the almost terrifying specificity of knowing exactly what you want and refusing to allow the world to talk you out of it. He had a number in his mind, a vision of an industry, a clarity so sharp it could have cut glass, and he pursued it with a focus that his contemporaries mistook for obsession, because they did not understand that to a man who knows precisely where he is going, every detour is just a different road to the same destination. You must do the same work, not vaguely, not aspirationally, not in the comfortable half-light of someday and maybe and I've been thinking about. You must sit down in silence and demand an answer from yourself. What exactly do you want to build? What does it look like? What does it feel like to walk through the door of it? What is the number, the actual specific number that represents financial freedom to you? What are the names on the organizational chart you are building? What problem does your empire solve, and for whom, and why does solving it matter to you at a level deeper than profit? Write it down, not as a wish, as a contract with yourself. This is not an exercise in positive thinking. This is an act of profound intellectual courage. Because the moment you commit to a clear vision, you also commit to the discomfort of pursuing it. Vagueness is comfortable. Vagueness means you never have to confront the gap between where you are and where you intend to be. Clarity is ruthless. Clarity holds you accountable. Clarity looks at every distraction, every excuse, every comfortable compromise, and says, not this, not yet, not until.
Lincoln had clarity. In the middle of a war that was tearing a nation in half, surrounded by advisors who urged retreat, by newspapers that called him incompetent, by a grief so personal it would have shattered lesser men, Lincoln held a single, uncompromising vision of what America was supposed to be. Not what it was supposed to be. And he walked toward that vision, through fire, without flinching. Empires are not built by people who are vaguely optimistic. They are built by people who are specifically, unshakably, dangerously clear about what they are building and why. Now hear this, because the world will not tell you. Purpose is not found, it is forged. There is a seductive lie that our culture tells, that somewhere out there is your passion, your calling, your true north, waiting to be discovered like a treasure buried in the earth. That if you just meditate enough, or travel enough, or read enough self-help books, one day it will reveal itself to you like a sunrise, and from that moment on, everything will be clear, and the path will be lit, and the work will feel effortless. This is a beautiful lie, and it has cost more people their empires than any external obstacle ever could. Purpose is not waiting for you. Purpose is built, slowly, through the accumulation of committed action, through the willingness to begin before you feel ready, through the discipline of showing up to the work even when the work feels uncertain and the outcome feels far away. Hill understood this. He did not discover his purpose of studying success in a single illuminated moment. He built it through years of interviews, of poverty, of rejection, of working in obscurity without guarantee of reward. The purpose deepened as the work deepened. The clarity grew as the commitment grew. This is how it works for all of us. You do not wait for purpose to arrive and then act. You act, and through the acting, the purpose reveals itself, refines itself, becomes something you could never have predicted from the comfort of inaction. The entrepreneur who is still waiting to find their passion before they launch is losing time they cannot recover. The professional who is postponing their leap until they feel completely certain is confusing certainty with courage. Certainty is a luxury that empires do not offer in advance. Courage is what you bring to the uncertainty, and purpose is what you find on the other side of it. Start. Begin. Move. Not perfectly. Not with all the answers, not with the funding secured or the team assembled or the market validated according to every metric. Move with what you have, toward what you can see, trusting that the path will become visible as you walk it, because it always does for those who refuse to stop walking. Discipline is not punishment. Understand that, and you will understand one of the greatest secrets of every empire ever built. The modern world has sold discipline as deprivation, as the joyless grind, the early alarm, the cold plunge, the suffering as status symbol performance that has become its own kind of noise. That is not discipline. That is theater. True discipline is devotion. It is the quiet daily act of returning to your vision when the world gives you 1,000 reasons to abandon it. It is the choice, made not once, but 10,000 times, to do the difficult thing instead of the comfortable thing. Not because you enjoy difficulty for its own sake, but because you are in love with what the difficulty is building.
Edison's laboratories ran 24 hours a day, not because Edison was a masochist, because he was possessed by something larger than convenience, a vision of a world transformed by electricity, by recorded sound, by light that did not depend on flame. The discipline was not the point. The devotion was the point. And devotion makes discipline not just bearable, but sacred. You must build this relationship with your work. Not the shallow version, the productivity hacks, and the time blocking and the optimization rituals that substitute the appearance of discipline for its substance. The real version, the kind where you know on a Tuesday morning, when the results are slow and the doubt is loud and the comfortable life is whispering its seductions, you know why you are doing this. And that why is sufficient. That why is your anchor, your engine, your compass all at once. Every day that you show up to your empire before your empire shows up for you is a deposit in an account that will one day pay returns you cannot yet calculate. Every hour you spend building while others spend consuming is compounding silently in your favor.
Every sacrifice that looks from the outside like loss is, from the inside of your vision, investment. The salary mindset is transactional. I give this much, I receive this much, the exchange is complete, the ledger is balanced, and tomorrow we begin again with zero. The empire mindset is exponential. Everything I do today is building something that will work for me when I am not working, that will grow when I am sleeping, that will create value long after the hours that produced it have passed. This is not about working harder. It is about working with a different understanding of what work is for. Work, for the empire builder, is not an exchange of time for money. It is the act of materializing a vision. It is creation. It is legacy in motion. There will come a moment, and if you are honest, you know it has already come more than once, when everything you have built seems to be falling apart. The deal collapses, the partner leaves, the market shifts, the funding dries up. The plan that seemed so solid in the warmth of optimism reveals its cracks in the cold of reality. And in that moment, the question that defines empire builders is not whether you will feel the pain of it. You will. All of them did. Carnegie lost everything before he built everything. Edison's laboratory burned to the ground when he was 67 years old, destroying decades of work in a single night. He stood watching the flames and reportedly said to his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They will never see a fire like this again." And then he rebuilt, not because he was superhuman, because he had long ago made a decision, deeper than emotion, deeper than circumstance, that the vision was worth whatever the journey demanded. Lincoln suffered a nervous breakdown. Churchill battled what he called his black dog, a depression so profound it threatened to consume him, and yet stood before a nation at its darkest hour and spoke words that history still carries. Henry Ford went bankrupt twice. Walt Disney was told his theme park idea was absurd by every major investor he approached. The pattern is not that these men avoided devastation. The pattern is that they had developed, through years of deliberate mental discipline, a resilience that could not be permanently broken by any single event. This is what Hill called persistence, and he considered it, above all other qualities, the one that most reliably separated those who built empires from those who only dreamed of them. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is not the refusal to learn or adapt or change course when change is necessary. Persistence is the decision, made at a level so deep it becomes almost structural, that quitting is not among the available options. Not quitting on the vision. You may quit a strategy.
You may quit a partnership. You may quit a market or a model or a method. But the vision, the clear, specific, burning picture of what you are building and why, that you do not abandon. That you carry through every storm, every winter, every season of doubt, knowing that seasons change, that winters end, that the storm always, always passes. The question is never whether difficulty will come. It always comes. The only question is what you have built inside yourself that can withstand it. And that inner architecture, that structure of belief, clarity, purpose, discipline, and resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you build, deliberately, patiently, starting now and continuing every day that you choose your empire over your excuses. Let us talk about the people in your life, because they will shape this journey in ways you must understand clearly. Hill called it the mastermind principle, the idea that no empire is built alone, that the minds you surround yourself with become, in a very real sense, extensions of your own mind, that the collective intelligence, energy, and belief of the people closest to you either amplifies your vision or diminishes it. This is not about cutting people off. This is not the cold arithmetic of networking for advantage. This is something more fundamental and more urgent. You cannot afford at this stage to spend the majority of your time with people who have made their peace with ordinary. Not because ordinary people are without value, every human being carries infinite worth, but because proximity is powerful, and immersion is transformative, and the conversation you are swimming in every day is shaping the size of what you believe is possible. If every voice around you speaks the language of limitation, be realistic, be careful, be grateful for what you have, don't risk too much, don't dream too big, then you will, despite your best intentions, begin to hear that language in your own thoughts. You will begin to police yourself before the world gets the chance. You will begin to shrink, not because you want to, but because the environment demands it. Seek out the builders, the ones who are 3 steps ahead of where you want to be, and who make that distance feel navigable rather than paralyzing. The ones who speak about problems as puzzles rather than proof of doom. The ones who, when you share your vision, do not immediately recite the reasons it won't work, but instead ask, how can we make this work? These people exist. They are in rooms you have not yet entered, on platforms you have not yet engaged with, at events you have told yourself you cannot afford to attend. Find them. Invest in access to them, because the return on that investment will compound in ways that no financial instrument can match. And then, give generously to those relationships. Do not arrive with only your needs and your ambitions. Arrive with your full capacity to contribute, to support, to add value before you extract it. The mastermind is not a transaction. It is an ecosystem. And ecosystems flourish when every member is committed to the health of the whole. There is one more thing that the salary world never teaches you, because the salary world has no use for it. Gratitude is not weakness. Gratitude is not the soft counterpart to ambition, the consolation prize for people who are not hungry enough to want more. Gratitude, understood correctly, is one of the most powerful forces available to the empire builder. Because gratitude is the practice of acknowledging that you are already in motion, that the resources you need to begin are already in your possession, that the story has already started, and the only question is how you choose to continue it. The person who cannot be grateful for where they are cannot be trusted with where they are going. Not because gratitude is a spiritual prerequisite for success, but because the inability to recognize current assets is the same cognitive limitation that will cause you to miss future opportunities. The mind that sees only what it lacks is a mind that will always, at every level of achievement, feel insufficient. You can reach the pinnacle of the empire you imagined, and if you have not trained yourself to see what is present rather than only what is absent, you will stand at the top of that mountain and feel empty.
Hill watched this happen to men who built enormous wealth, men who had everything the world calls success, and yet could not access contentment, could not slow down long enough to feel what they had built, because they had never developed the practice of presence. They were always living inside the next acquisition, the next goal, the next horizon, not because they were ambitious, but because they were addicted to absence, because they had spent so long focused on the gap that they could no longer see the ground. Gratitude is the practice of standing firmly on the ground you are already on, claiming it fully before you move to the next elevation. It is the recognition that you have survived everything that tried to stop you, that you have already demonstrated more resilience than most people will ever be called to show, that the hunger inside you, the fire that brought you to this moment, to these words, to this decision, is itself a gift of extraordinary rarity. Most people never feel it. Most people move through life without ever being disturbed by something larger than comfort. You have been disturbed. You have been restless. You have been unable to fully convince yourself that the ordinary path is enough. That disturbance is the beginning of every empire ever built. Honor it. And so we return to where we began, to that moment when someone handed you a dream small enough to fit inside a cubicle and told you to be grateful. You have carried their version of your story long enough. You know now what Hill knew. You know what Carnegie knew, and Edison, and Disney, and Lincoln, and every man and woman who looked at the ordinary world and saw not the ceiling, but the floor, who understood that the limits others imposed were not laws of nature, they were suggestions offered by people who had accepted them as laws. You are not required to accept them. You are not required to make your life small enough to make other people comfortable. You are not required to suppress the vision, quiet the fire, or shrink the picture in your mind to fit the frame of someone else's expectation. You were not built for a salary. You were not built to trade your most irreplaceable asset, your time, your attention, your creative force, your life, for a number that someone else decided you are worth. You were built for the early mornings when the idea is still new and terrifying and electric. You were built for the rooms where decisions are made, not the rooms where they are received. You were built for the moment when your name is on the door, not because of vanity, but because of what it represents. Years of refusing, seasons of enduring, days of building when the building felt impossible. You were built for the empire. Not as a distant fantasy, not as something that happens to other people, luckier people, better connected people, people who started earlier or knew more or had more to begin with. Now, with what you have from where you are. The blueprint is inside you. The fire is already lit. The only permission you are waiting for is the one that has always been yours to give. Give it.
Build it. Become it. The empire was never outside of you. It was always, from the very beginning, a decision away. Make the decision.